Hi guys, this is Lorena. Thank you so much for coming back to my channel, or if you're new here, welcome. If you don't know me, my name is Lorena. I'm an astrologer and I film chart videos over here on YouTube. So yeah, I really took my time, guys, before I posted the next video. So I'm really sorry for, missing for such a long time, but I didn't really feel the energy of posting on YouTube anymore. Don't know why, but now I felt called to come back here with a very special chart. And today we are looking at Celine Dion's chart. It's a very special one. Now with the eclipse season coming soon, I said, well, why don't we look at a chart of a person that has actually been born during an eclipse? And Celine Dion really came to my mind because she actually has a chart that really is similar to mine in terms of degrees and the houses. And yeah, why not to do a chart on someone that is so aligned with you? But here we go. This is her chart. A couple of general analysis and information here is that she has a big combination of fire and water sign energy in her chart. Obviously goes beyond that, but we have this Aries and Pisces combination running in her sun moon being in Aries and Mercury Venus being in Pisces, and then also the ascendant being in a fire sign, which means that she's not only a very fiery, independent, passionate person, which is very evident in her personality as her big three is all fire, but she's also very soft and intuitive in her communication and self-expression, which is evidently present in her performance style. Finally, we also have a Taurus Mars, which kind of seems to fall out of nowhere, but I really love this placement because she has such a lot of Aries energy, which is ruled by Mars. So Aries is all about passion and being driven and impulsive sometimes, and then this Aries Mars, this Taurus Mars really slaps us in the face, like she's not all that impulsive actually, and she does have a level of practicality with how she tackles challenges, which I really love. But this is just a general overview. I wanted to start off with the sun sign, as I normally do, and the sun in Celine's chart falls in Aries and in the 9th house, but it is also very close to the 10th house cusp, the midheaven. And in general, when I see a planet that is within 4 to 5 degrees from the midheaven, I usually consider it as being part of the 10th house as well. Now the sun represents a person's vitality and power, right? So for Celine, the sun being in Aries means that she's a very assertive person, right? And she's not afraid to show that. She's definitely pursuing the things that she has in mind. She just goes for it. There's no question in between, should I do this, should I do that? No, she goes for it. And because the moon is also in Aries, this is what we call when someone is born during a new moon, when the sun and the moon are conjunct or within the same zodiac sign. So she was born during a new moon, which means that emotionally she has that big desire for independence as well. Like, it's not just should I go for this, or I just want to be assertive and I want people to respect me for my independence. She's like, she doesn't accept no for an answer. And I think this is a wonderful thing to see in people who are entrepreneurs or business owners, or who have a career where they really have to show independence and have to show their grit. So in general, Aries placements do show a lot of resilience in a person, but sometimes it comes with the tendency towards being impulsive. And we do see here with Mars square the ascendant that there's also a tendency for her to come off as quite restless and like never like stopping from moving, which is absolutely not a negative thing necessarily. It depends on the person, but nevertheless, to say with the sun in Aries, there's a big passion for doing things, for starting things, and for doing so independently. Now, because the sun falls in the 9th house, and we have actually a 9th house stellium here, we're going to say that there's a big focus in her life on international travels and on gaining wisdom. She's actually very concerned with finding out the truth, whatever that truth is, and we see that because of Chiron here in the 9th house. So people with Chiron in the 9th house just go through some sort of a religious breakthrough at some point in their lives, or they just have a big turnaround where they're hurt by, let's say, the religion that they were raised in, and now they want to share the truth with the world. People with Chiron in the 9th house, if they're not on the religious end of things, they just really feel like there's something wrong with the world. Like, this world is a shit full of crazy people and there are no rules and everything is hectic. So kind of like these people tend to get very invested in fairness when it comes to international people, when it comes to people of minorities. And in general, Chiron in the ninth house means that it really hurts her when things are not right, and when she feels like she doesn't really know the truth. So a lot of people with Chiron in the ninth house really thrive as astrologers, or thrive when they embrace a healthy form of religion or spirituality, because that helps them feel more in tune with themselves. And they continuously want to heal others when it comes to their own religious or spiritual beliefs, and they want to make sure that everyone is healthy in that sense. So yeah, a lot of people with Chiron in the ninth house end up being activists as well, because of this passion for the truth and sharing the truth. Now, I haven't seen a lot of CELINE doing activism out there in the world, but definitely I would say there's a very wise aspect of herself, and it's a part of herself that always seeks new truths and new knowledge. And we don't just see that because of Chiron here in the ninth house. We actually see this because there's Mercury and Venus. Sorry, my cat wants to come in. Excuse me. Typical cat. He was scratching the door. I opened it and then he didn't want to come in. So I was like, are you coming in or not, or what? And then he just left. So if you hear scratching of the door again, you know, I left the door open. It's not my fault. He's not coming in. Where were we? Oh God. Yeah. So Mercury and Venus in the ninth house as well shows that she's gonna have a very optimistic and forward thinking. Like Mercury in the ninth house loves to think about new philosophies and to think about everything that could be. But I really like that Venus is here in the ninth house. This shows that she has a love for travel, a love for seeing new cultures, for learning new things. So this is the kind of person that would, you know, really get stuck in getting a lot of degrees and not getting out of education, or just someone that would love to see international places and just putting their backpack on their back and starting to talk to people. So definitely a really, really wonderful placement. Now, because Mercury and Venus are conjunct, I really like conjunctions like this, because it means that the two planets are fusing their energies together. So Mercury deals with her communication style and how her mind works and how she thinks, and then Venus brings in the energy of artistry and beauty. So you can think about Aphrodite, right? Now this, you guessed it, does show that she has a very beautiful voice. And I'm not going to say that everyone with Mercury conjunct Venus will be singers or will have a fantastic voice, but it does in general in people's charts show a tendency towards artistry. So they're either, you know, actual artists or singers or performers in one way or the other, or they have a very like feminine way of expressing themselves, at least, especially when we talk about men's charts who are because obviously feminine and masculine energies are always present in the chart for any person. But when it comes to her actual communication style, Mercury in Pisces shows that even though she has this assertive energy, she doesn't speak over others. She doesn't have this overly assertive way of communicating, and she's actually quite intuitive and almost psychic with how she thinks and how she learns. So if you have a Mercury Pisces in your natal chart, you probably remember when you were little, when you were in school, that like maybe you had a different learning style. You didn't just read the information and memorize it. Pisces loves to combine some sort of emotion and feeling to it. So a lot of the times people with Mercury in Pisces are very receptive to energy. They're very receptive to emotions, to feelings. And this is usually also an indicator of psychic abilities or empathy. So I wouldn't be surprised if she had a little bit of that. But overall, in general, people with Mercury in Pisces don't really study in the same way as other people do, because it's more intuitive, more psychic. It's not necessarily just highly logical. So I mentioned that she was born during an eclipse, but before that, I wanted to walk you through her ascendant placement. So the ascendant represents a person's lens through which they see life. Also, it is how they portray themselves in life. So CELINE has her ascendant in Leo, which means that the very first instinct that she has in life is to express herself creatively and also to shine wherever she goes. And A lot of celebrities tend to have a Scorpio or a Leo ascendant, because when you have a Leo ascendant, you just naturally shine. But when you naturally shine, but when you have a Scorpio ascendant, you have a Leo midheaven. So in your career, you naturally shine. I find that really interesting. Obviously, there's celebrities with a variety of ascendant signs, but I find that people with Scorpio and the Leo ascendants just kind of naturally enjoy it more, being in the spotlight. But yeah, with the ascendant in Leo, so she's not only going to have the very first instinct to be creative, but she will naturally shine with whatever she does. And I think this is something that helps her feel at home, feel in tune with her body. And also it's something that really brings a lot of good energy in her life whenever she gets to sing, whenever she gets to perform and has all the attention on her. Because the first house is the house of the physical body, obviously we want to make sure that we are in touch with our ascendant sign. So for instance, if you have your ascendant in Aquarius, you may need to have some friends, you know, to be in tune with your environment around you, to innovate and maybe even be eccentric from time to time in order to ensure you have good health. So it's really good to be in tune with your ascendant sign to ensure that your body is also having a good time. Now, Leo is ruled by the sun. So we already talked about the sun, but when the sun is actually your chart ruler, which is the case for CELINE, it's a whole different story, right? The sun, your ego, needs to be satisfied in order for you as a whole person to be satisfied. So here's where we talk about the eclipse. How can we tell if a person is born during the eclipse season? Well, first of all, the sun needs to be in the same zodiac sign as one of the lunar nodes. So we see the sun in Aries and the north node also in Aries. And in order for it to be an eclipse, it needs to be either a new moon or a full moon. That means the moon needs to be either in the same zodiac sign or in the opposite zodiac sign. So the moon is also in Aries with the north node and the sun, meaning that she was born during a new moon or the day after the new moon, but the eclipse, you know, still kind of is considered during that time. And because the north node is here, it's not just a new moon, it's a solar eclipse. Now, people born during solar eclipses have a magnified energy. It's kind of like, I don't know if you're familiar with witchcraft and how, you know, witches, for instance, do moon water, right? You can like do spells with normal water and just put intentions in it, but because let's say the full moon has some extra watery energy, if you work with that moon water, then boom, your spells are magnified. So we're gonna say that everything that happens during a solar eclipse has a magnified potential, especially when we talk about the sun and the moon in a person's chart. Now, because her sun and her moon are in the 10th house of the career, and we also have Saturn, the planet of diligence and responsibility here, this just literally screamed she was gonna be a celebrity. Like, I don't know how to explain this to you guys. The 10th house being the house of your professional image and the mark that you want to live in this world. She came in with full-blown ambitions. She was like, ever since she came out of her mother's womb, she was like, yeah, I want to be successful. I want everyone to know my name. And it's not an egoistical thing, you know. It's not something like, oh, I want to be the best and nothing else, and that's it. It's not even motivated by money, because Jupiter in the second house shows that actually she's quite generous with her money, and she doesn't have a problem to donate her energy and her money to others as long as she, you know, believes in a cause. So I don't think it's like greed that gets her to be so successful. It's literally just this eclipse energy that's so powerful. And when it's in the sign of Aries, you know, people who have Aries energy, if they trust their first gut, like the very first idea that comes to your mind, if you go for it, you're very successful. But because she was born during a solar eclipse, the more that she trusts that first instinct that she has, the more that she experiences success that's magnified. So that's why we say, you know, when the eclipse season comes online, you know, when there's a transit that brings an eclipse, like it will bring now on October 25th, the solar eclipse in Scorpio, and then the lunar eclipse in Scorpio Taurus axis on November 7th, you're going to start to feel in the area where you have Scorpio and Taurus in your life, like you want to start so many new things. You want to, you know, resolve so many issues in that part of your life. And then, but if you're born with the solar eclipse, it's like that potential, like lives throughout your life. So long story short, nevertheless to say, so Saturn brings her diligence in her career, the moon brings her an emotional desire to be successful, and then Mars brings the restlessness. Like even children with Mars in the 10th house, you don't have to convince them about the importance of having a career, because there's certain kids that kind of are born and are like, I don't know, I just want to be happy, I don't care. But there's kids that are born and they literally envision themselves being on a stage, and this is your Mars in the 10th house kid. So it's no surprise to me that she has been literally building towards a successful career ever since she was little. And not to say that this is what makes you a good person in life, but I think it shows how, she had the potential in her chart and she worked with it, and this is where she is right now. Now, at the same time, I find it interesting that the moon is at 29 degrees. The 29th degree is an anaretic degree. It is a critical degree in astrology because it's the very last degree. It means that there's a little bit of extra pressure for you to understand the energies of that planet and the energies of that zodiac sign as well. When the moon is at 29 degrees, some people don't really know how to nurture themselves, or there is some sort of difficult energy when it comes to either the mother or the person that was in charge with nurturing her. And because the moon is in the 10th house, this is a very tough house for the moon to be in, which is naturally comfortable in the 4th house. This could show that Celine perceived her mother or her nurturing parent as someone that was always working, or as someone who puts that pressure onto her to be successful professionally, rather than just hug her and give her kisses and that kind of stuff. So she's missing a little bit on that energy. I'm not to say that her parents are at fault or anything like that. In general, when you come with this energy, you're more predisposed and biased to understand this from your parents. But obviously, I'm a family astrologer, so I know this. Parents, if they know about this, they definitely can help guide a person and a child later on in life to nurture themselves and to have the required tools in order to provide a good mental health. But this could potentially bring some struggles when it comes to, she could be very hard on herself with Saturn also on top of the sun. It feels like, she perceived her father as someone that was very serious and who brought a lot of responsibility and lessons in her life. So this is not always easy to have. But definitely it shows that she was also molded into this very serious character too, kind of like a Capricorn. So she does have this Aries combined with Capricorn energy in her ego, because Saturn rules Capricorn. Now, moving forward, I wanted to leave the 10th house a little bit behind, and I wanted to focus a little bit on what's going on here in the lower side of the chart. So remember when we talked about Mercury in Pisces, another house or place to look for to understand how a person learns and thinks critically is the 3rd house. And in her 3rd house, she has Pluto and Uranus, which first of all, Uranus shows that she has a restlessness when it comes to her mind, and a restlessness when it comes to traveling to, different various places, just wanting to see the world. So definitely she has that. But Pluto here in the 3rd house shows that she has a strong mental state. She's always looking to learn something new. She's always like, if she hears about something, she's gonna dive into the books and learn everything and study everything about it. Now, the difference between the 9th house and the 3rd house is that the 9th house is more concerned with, higher learning, so higher education, long-term travels, international travels. The 3rd house deals more with short-term information, the kind of thing that a student studies, right? The 3rd house is more scattered, but the 3rd house also deals with short-term travel, so information that has a shorter impact in your life. But nevertheless, whenever she's gonna find about something, she's gonna want to study about it. And just to make a little bit of a joke here, I actually have a statistic going on. Most of the people who book one-on-one live readings with me tend to have Pluto in the 3rd house, or Pluto aspecting Mercury, which is insane because I do provide video readings as well. If you want to book a reading, check the description down below. But yeah, I do offer pre-recorded readings, which sometimes are easier to digest and consume. But people with Pluto in the 3rd house, they want to talk about it with me, and they usually ask a lot of questions too. And I thought that was really interesting to see in Celine's chart as well. Definitely, she's a student and a teacher, and she consistently just switches spots in that area. But yeah, continuing on. So there's also this Neptune here in the fifth house that I wanted to talk about. The fifth house is the house of creativity, fun, children, all of the exciting things of life. So we talk about placing a bet, so gambling, but also dealing with kids, but also romantic encounters, such as, you know, dating, the kind of dating that happens in the first part of the relationship where everything is exciting. So you get the fifth house is all about fun and exciting things, and it can also show how a person approaches performing and putting their own creative energy out there on the outside. Now, Neptune in the fifth house means that she has a very intuitive approach to her performances and to how she expresses herself. This is very similar to the Mercury in Pisces, kind of emphasizing on that outwardly energy that she has and her disconnection almost to spiritual realm when she composes and when she sings. And the fifth house here in Scorpio shows that she also has a very deep and intense approach towards performances. And I have a fifth house in Scorpio myself, and I can definitely understand, like, not wanting to just put on a show that is fun, wanting to put on a show that really impacts people and touches people's hearts. And I think this is why particularly she has become so successful. It is because she's not just going on a stage, putting on a shallow dance and, you know, coming home. She sits in the same place and she's singing, but everyone's hearts are touched. So this is where it's coming from, the fifth house in Scorpio. So I thought that was really cool to see. Moving forward, so I wanted to look a little bit at the soul purpose and kind of the lessons that she's here to learn, and the lessons that she's here to and the karma that she's here to leave behind, shall we say. So the very first thing that we look for is the south node. So the south node for her is in Libra and in the fourth house, and the north node represents the soul purpose and the direction that she's going towards. And with the south node in Libra and in the fourth house, we could say that she comes from a past life environment where she's done a lot of nurturing, a lot of taking care of others, especially when it came to her family. And it feels like she has always been maybe a little bit shy with her energy, a little bit, not to, you know, put down the energy of the fourth house, because it has its own benefits. It definitely shows a person that has already learned how to be empathic and compassionate and a mother. But when you have the north node in the 10th house, the purpose that a person with this placement has is to grow out of their shell and to show who they are, right? And you're not just showing who you are to your friends or even just on social media. You're showing it to everybody, and you're showing it through the mark that you live into this world. And because the north node is also in Aries, it is through her assertive side, right, that she achieves this. She's done a lot of compromising in her past lifetimes with this Libra energy. A lot of, okay, let's just make sure everyone gets along, especially in the family. She was like, okay, my mom wants me to do this, so I'm not going to pursue this career path. That was her in the past life. But now with the north node here in the 10th house and the sun and the moon forming a midpoint right around the north node, definitely it is through she was like gifted this big personality so that she would do this. It's like I would definitely say there was a little bit of a karmic pressure for her to get to her soul purpose, because usually when you are born with such a big potential around your north node, it's like your higher self says, in this life we better get it. You know, in this life we better be successful in professional wise. So I thought that was a really interesting placement to have a look at. All right. Other things that I thought were interesting, and then I'm gonna bring them up to you, is that with this fourth house energy, it's interesting that her moon also squares her ascendant. This shows that she can be easily influenced by others, so easily influenced by the environment that she's in, and that she also comes off in general as a very pleasurable and fun person to be around, because the moon, when it touches the ascendant, it creates a person that is very malleable, should I say, but because Mars is here, you know, it's with a pinch of salt. She's still showing that assertive energy from when she has to. I think the biggest problem in her life is when people are telling her what to do, because again, with this big karma that's building up, and with the moon in Aries at 29 degrees, it's like her heart is saying, no, no, we don't like this. No, 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 no. So we see this in teenagers, for instance, with Moon in Aries, who have to study in high school a lot of things that they don't like, and they're gonna be like, why do I have to do this? Why do I have to study something that I don't like? Why do I have to be told what to do when I could be doing so many bigger things with my energy and with my time? So definitely there's a restlessness that comes from inside that just says, I want to do everything, and I want to do everything in my own terms. No one tell me what to do. So that's definitely present here in her chart as well. Something that I thought was really cool, and I'm going to end with the chart reading and move to the transits, is the part of fortune. So her second house, which is the house of finances, money, possessions, and how you value yourself, starts in the sign of Leo, which means that she's going to make most money when she expresses her creative abilities, and that there's a little bit of a danger here for her to place her self-worth onto the opinions and the criticism of others. So sometimes when you have a Leo in the second house, your worth equals what someone else thinks of your performing abilities. So it's important that she works on having big security in who she is and in her abilities. And then with the part of fortune here in the second house, the part of fortune shows where you experience luck and fortune in your life. It shows that if she were to embrace the energy of Leo, where you shine, you're creative, you're putting on a show for others, but you're also letting yourself be seen, she would have a lot of financial stability and security in her life. And needless to say, she definitely achieved this. And it just so happens that the part of fortune trines her North Node, which says that this would help her, motivate her in achieving her purpose. Great. Now, to have a look at the transits really quickly, there's something really interesting in her chart, actually. And I mentioned, I think, at the beginning that her chart is very similar to mine. I'm going through the exact same thing, actually. One thing that we can see here is that she has Chiron, which has entered the 10th house. Now, Chiron is this area of healing work, so it brings a lot of changes in the area that it transits, and it spends a really lengthy time on top of a house. So sometimes it spends, between 2 to 7 years, sometimes on top of a house, depending on how big that house is for you and, how Chiron is moving at that time, because it's a little bit inconsistent with its movement. But in general, when Chiron just enters the house, it brings a massive change throughout that year for the house that it's about to transit. And Chiron has just entered her 10th house of the career. It's entered it last year, so she's definitely approaching the end of this transit. But it just so happens that in her natal chart, Saturn is here too. So whilst for some people, Chiron entering the 10th house just maybe brings a well-needed career change, you address your healing work and then you're like, whoa, now I see that I'm worthy of doing this thing, right? So Chiron revealed to you what you need to change about your life. You start doing it, and then boom, career changes or big career booms. But because her Saturn is here, it shows that her lessons when it comes to this healing work might be a little bit more difficult. And because Saturn rules the 6th house, which is the house of health, routine, it is the house of all of the mundane things, but also your physical is the house of the physical body 2.0 after the 1st house. It definitely would bring some health challenges while she is learning what she needs to leave behind in her career and what new things are going to come. So again, I have Chiron on top of my 10th house right now, entering the 10th house, and I realized so many things that I wanted to change about my career that came through, a little bit of a pain, but it's just coming in. But because Saturn is here in her own chart, it's like she has to also see this healing work reflected physically, which is not always easy. But yes, Chiron will move away from her midheaven, so it's retrograde, it's doing its back and forth movement. Chiron loves to move like a pendulum. In January it goes direct again. So in February it's at 13 degrees, and then in March it's at 14 degrees, which is where her Saturn is, and then boom, it's moving away, 16, 17, 18, 19, and so on and so forth. Because she has so many placements in the 10th house, definitely the healing work might continue, and I do think that the more that she tackles this healing work, it will help her really solidify her soul purpose, because the North Node is the placement of the purpose. It's like your destination, shall I say. So I would definitely say now and in the following 2 to 3 years, she will address the healing work that she came here to address, and she will be pretty much done with the lessons, unless, you know, there's something else coming up. But it does really give me the impression that she's completing a big cycle when it comes to her career, especially because, you know, the North Node on the sky is transiting Taurus at the moment. So the eclipse season right now is also on top of her 10th house. Imagine that, being born during an eclipse season, happening on top of your 10th house, and then now you have a Chiron on top of your midheaven, which brings you a lot of career changes through your health. And then also there's another eclipse season coming on top of your 10th house, by the way. So I can only imagine that she feels a little bit of pressure. But I would definitely say, you know, her listening to her body, and taking things slowly, which is counter Aries like, but taking things slowly to figure out what things need to be left behind, what new things need to be accepted, will be the solution to be able to move forward in whatever she wants to do. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Saturn transiting her 8th house currently might bring some changes when or some lessons when it comes to sharing finances and values with others. And also, yeah, on the shorter term, there's Jupiter on top of her 10th house, of course. So career changes, just to spice it all up. We've already talked about this. So yeah, I think this is pretty much everything that I wanted to say about her chart. Let me know what you think about this one. Let me know if you have any similar placements, or if you have questions. More than happy to address whatever, guys, you come up with. And let me know if you have any requests as to what charts we should look at next, or if you have any questions about the eclipse season. Maybe I can do a video about it here on my YouTube channel. But you guys, you stay safe and don't do rash decisions during this time. The energy is hectic, but use it wisely. All right. So yeah, I'll catch you later, and you guys take care. Bye.